Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. As you can see, it's a very exciting one because we have Joe and Christina here. We're very excited. We've missed Joe on our webinars. Let us know in the chat how long you've been watching our webinars, and you may remember Joe on our
Hey,
webinar.
Natalie. Yeah, the OGs, I guess,
Yeah.
before the newer cast members like Katia and Lyle took over.
Hello, everyone. Natalie, Diane, Jennifer, welcome. We're very excited for this one today because we are going to be talking about the framework for building your community on social media. This is a very exciting one because community is just everywhere right now. It is the hot topic of the year. And I remember end of 2023, it was like one of the biggest predictions for 2024, and it has totally been accurate so far, for sure.
I want to give my buddy Daniel a shout out as well. He's a close friend of mine, so it means a lot that he tunes into the webinar.
Welcome. Oh, from Florida. Nice. All right. Well, as a few more people trickle in here, I'm going to get started because I know we have a lot of awesome stuff to cover today. So we will jump right in. So if this is one of your very first webinars with us, we will do a quick round of intros. So my name is Alyssa, and I'm a community manager here at HeyOrca. So I work on our webinars, our newsletter, Facebook group, all that kind of stuff. And I'll pass it over to Joe.
Hey everyone, my name is Joe. I'm the Chief Executive Orca here at HeyOrca. I work with Alyssa and the team really closely around community, so I'm really passionate about this because I've seen firsthand how community can affect your strategy, your bottom line if you do it right. So we're still in our own journey, so hopefully we'll be able to share some of the things that we've learned so far. And Christina has been such a big impact on our community journey. So, really excited every time we have a chance to collaborate with her. So pass it over to Christina.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Garnett, and I am a fractional CCO and advisor for startups and agencies. Like Joe said, I have had the honor of working with his team on building out community structure and what that looks like. And I'm really excited to talk about community again today.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you. The last webinar that we collaborated with Christina on was so good. So we are very excited to have you back. And I just want to point out Natalie's comment in the chat. Natalie said, I've been spending 5 to 10 minutes commenting and engaging on TikTok, like we talked about a few webinars ago, and I've been seeing a lot of follower growth from my company's page. Yay, I'm glad to see that because TikTok can be tricky, but I'm glad that it is working.
Yeah, one thing that Katia reminded me, Katia, social media community manager, mentioned was it's not only about posting, it's about commenting as well. So really taking time to involve your community. So that's probably one of the most underrated advice I got last year.
Totally. And I also want to point out that Jesse is in the chat and has put our all of our LinkedIn pages in the chat if you want to connect with us after the webinar. We love to connect. And if this is one of your very first webinars, we do giveaways, and we love to do giveaways. We do them in every single webinar, and we actually have 2 different giveaways today. So the first one is head over to our Instagram. We have this poll question on our story. Vote on this poll, and we will be randomly selecting somebody to win points to our merch store. And our merch store has, of course, HeyOrca merch, but then also snacks. So it's pretty fun. So head over to our Instagram page on our story, vote on the poll. And then if you also want to tell us why you think it's important, community is important in social in the chat, maybe you'll get bonus points. So head over there. And then the second way to win is actually for our HeyOrca customers out there in the crowd. So I just have a very simple question for you guys. I just want to know, how long have you been a HeyOrca customer? Let me know in the chat, and we will be randomly selecting one of you at the very end to also win some merch points. So 2 different ways to win. So you might as well try. And we'll be doing these giveaways at the very end of the webinar, so stay tuned.
Katie mentioned that my company's launching a Thrive platform through Higher Logic to build a community. I think that's a really great comment, because community exists in open communities and closed communities, which I think we'll touch on a little bit. I think that's super important to sort of differentiate and how they work together.
I love that.
And everyone knows we have a merch store, right? Like everyone knows, and we restocked the snacks already in merch.
Yes.
So
and
make sure
I've
to check it
been
out.
restocking, doing different snacks about every month-ish. So there's always going to be something new in there for you. So always fun. But before we get into everything, I'm actually going to pass it over to Joe because he has a few exciting things to show before we dive in.
Okay, let me just share my screen. While I'm sharing my screen, feel free to check out our merch store. I just pasted there. Okay, cool. Are you guys seeing my screen? Yes? Okay. So first off, I want to mention to, if you're a HeyOrca customer, we just updated the Canva integration so that not only can you create a default dimension, you can actually now create a custom dimension when you're creating a Canva file. So before this update, you had to choose between stories, or you had to choose between like a portrait mode. Now you can actually set your own custom dimensions. If you have a specific dimension, you'll be able to do that. You create a design, and you'll be able to then create your design right from HeyOrca. So small and mighty update on the Canva side. But since we're talking about community building, the other thing, if you move over to the reporting side, I want to let you know as well. I'm just going to move over to our accounts here. We've added a total follower graph to total page likes graph to the reports. So not only are you able to see sort of like when someone unlikes your page or likes your page, you're also able to see your community growth over time. So this will be available for Facebook and Instagram. So we just added that graph a couple weeks ago, if you don't know yet. So you'll be able to see the total, not just the changes. And as per usual, you're able to scroll down here and look at your post performance. And this is super interesting and really important in our conversations about community, because it's all about creating content that your community resonate with. And in HeyOrca, you're able to sort them by the different metrics. So you get to decide what's the purpose of your community and what best represents that purpose. And HeyOrca actually compiles that, and you're able to sort that through this. So, and then with our AI reports, AI summary, it's going to summarize what actually engaged your community as well, just on the top segment. So some things here that will help you build your community. And also, I know there's a lot of Canva stands in our community. So with that custom dimension, I hope that that's going to help you save more time and help you be more streamlined in your workflow as well. So I'm going to stop screen sharing and hand it over to Alyssa.
Awesome. Thank you. I love that Canva update. So small, but so good. All right. I will get the slides back up here, and I am going to pass it back over to Christina and Joe.
Okay. So I'm very excited about this one, because this is actually you guys are the first people that are seeing this presentation publicly, because Christina and I, we're heading off to Calgary next week to deliver the same exact presentation. So I'm very excited to share it with all of you. And if you have any feedback, let us know so we can make some tweaks maybe ahead of our presentation next week. So I want to start talking about community, because this graph right here shows you when we started investing in community. So the red line is basically the cost of acquiring a new customer. So as you can see, back in 2022, we were giving Zuckerberg a lot of money. We're just putting money into meta ads and so forth. There is a time and place for ads. I'm not hating on paid ads. I think like they're really, really effective, but it became really unsustainable. And so I reached out to Alyssa. I mentioned, let's take a bet on our community. Let's really bet on them. Let's show up for them. Let's double down on them. And let's see what this will do for our bottom line. And honestly, it was really scary, but we really felt that this was the right way to go. And that's also why we brought on people like Ketsia, Christina, Jesse into the team as well, because we really believe in that vision. And we saw that in our cost per acquisition really dropping when we started investing in community. Can I control the slide here? Yes? Okay. One of the battles that we're always facing, I think, if you're a social media manager, is that we're always feeling like we're going up against the algorithm. And one thing that we found is that community is the antidote to the algorithm. And when you create content for your community, when you're always putting your community as the main character, guess what? The algorithm is actually serving the community as well. And by default, you're able to really overcome the algorithm. That's what we've been seeing in our side of things as well. Really always keeping community at the forefront. And Christina is going to go deeper into how to think about that. But I'd like to talk about why that's so important to us strategically as a company. Here are just some screenshots that I took in terms of our engagement rate. So if you're a HeyOrca customer, you should be able to access graphs like that in your reports. But you can see once we started investing in social in our community, we're able to start seeing engagements, which translates to post clicks, which translates to a lot of really good things as well. And over here, you look at impressions. There's really a marked difference between when we didn't really invest in community and when we're investing in community. Before 2023, we were really investing in close community. So things like Thrive that someone brought up, Katie, I believe. We invested in our newsletter. What we didn't really invest is the social media community. And so one thing that came us at epiphany, a light bulb moment, is this community mindset that we had for our newsletter, for our webinar. We need to translate the same energy into social media. And you can see that as well. Not only are we getting more impressions, we're also showing up consistently for our community and engaging with them. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the mindset shift that we made. Now, all of these work towards building a community. A lot of times when I talk to leaders, we say, let's invest in community. And we talk about community like it's an initiative. But one thing that I realized through our own journey and working with Christina is that community is not an initiative. Community is the outcome or the goal that you're building towards. So it's not a program, it's basically the outcome. So the pink ones that you're seeing here, paid ads, social media, personal branding, newsletter, webinar, resources, word of mouth, those are things that we invest, initiatives that we're investing for the purpose of building a strong community. And then once we have the attention, and as marketers, we're in the business of gaining attention. And the best way to gain attention is when you build a community that someone wants to belong. Once you get the attention, you see the green line here, you're able to redirect the attention to the business objectives that you're trying to work towards. So for us as a tech company, we're trying to build that sense of community and redirect the attention to free trial, redirect the attention to becoming a customer. And the beauty of this is that once they become a customer, they are part of our community as well. And that adds to the newsletter, that adds to the webinar, that adds to the branding side of things. So hopefully you'll be able to see sort of like how everything works together. And I want to encourage you to think about community as not an initiative, but it's an outcome that you're working towards. And the reason you're doing this, also shout out to Jessie for this graph. She prettified it really, really well. So I just want to give her a shout out there. We're in the business of building communities. As social media managers, I know our ultimate goal is to create brand awareness and to hopefully drive bottom line results. But the best way to do this is to create a space that people want to belong, a space that attention comes to you because you've created those kinds of communities, and then use those communities. Use would be a hard word, but leverage those communities to the goals that you are trying to work towards. So it could be a free trial. It could be come to our shop. It could be participate in our next gala or come to our donation campaign. Whatever it is, people will show up for you because community builds brand loyalty. All right, I'll pass it to Christina to talk about how we can think about this in a more structured way.
Thank you so much, Joe. And that was fantastic. I absolutely love seeing the metrics behind that because so many people love the idea of community, but they don't know how to prove that ROI. And I love the metrics that you selected because it really does showcase that it really can have a strong business case in addition to it providing really needed belonging and connection for your customers. So to get started, this is not going to be a surprise. People follow people. Of course, brands are going to say how great they are. Of course, they're going to go out there and say like everything that they want you to hear because they want to do whatever it takes to get you to convert. The problem is that we are used to this. You don't have to be a seasoned marketer to see these patterns. And so we will trust strangers. complete strangers and look at reviews versus actually going to a brand. And that's why it's so important to really embrace community and what that looks like, because I like to say that communities are relationships at scale. And so when you're thinking about how you're connecting with people, community really is, like Joe said, it is the antidote to the algorithm. It is the antidote to people doing hooks instead of genuinely connecting and caring in the comments. And so what I'm going to be discussing is the tactics and basically what you need to be thinking about as you're building this community, either from scratch or you already have something established and you want to make sure that it's going to work for you and for the people that are intended to be in there. So one thing that I find really interesting is that community, it's easy to say something's a community. It's very different for it to feel like it's a community. And so I think it's really interesting, and something that came to me when I was working with one of my clients was, I think that being a good community can help you. Maybe they can help you find a job. Maybe they can answer your questions. So if you're having an issue with like a SaaS product or something, but a great community transforms you. It connects you with people that become your best friends. It becomes the safe place when you're having a bad day and you just want to go to a place that's going to make you smile. It becomes the Cheers bar. It becomes your third place. And that's how you know that you've made something just genuinely magical for people that want to belong and connect. So because of that, because you're talking about relationships at scale, because you're talking about making people feel warm and fuzzy and belonging, that's going to drive affinity and trust. Because what you're doing is you're taking those small little tiny steps to build those relationships. Brand trust is not built overnight, and neither communities, and that's not an accident. It's not a coincidence. It really does take time and you being there for each other for them to realize, I can trust these people. Okay, so because if you were here at my last webinar, you will know that I love me some Wally. I think Wally is one of the cutest characters ever put to screen, and I adore him. And so you're going to see a lot of Wally on this presentation. Sorry, not sorry. If you've never seen Wally, you have homework from me. It will do to you what community should do to you. It will make you feel warm and fuzzy. It will give you something to root on. It will give you hope. It's just a lovely movie. So when we're thinking about community, what does that actually mean? What is it versus what isn't it? And so when we're thinking about that, we're really kind of looking at these opposing forces. We're looking at bidirectional conversation and the opportunity to not only speak brand to person, but person to person because of conversations that those brands have fostered and facilitated. We're talking about co-creation versus control. We're talking about not only is the person trusting the brand, but the brand trusts you back. You made a demo of what it's like to use our tool. We want to see it instead of immediately freaking out and thinking, but we don't have any control over this. It's going to be supportive. It's going to be relational versus transactional. It isn't about what the brand needs. It's about taking care of the people. And I love that one thing that you were talking about, Joe, with the web, where these are things we're investing in, and through that, we'll get that. What you're showcasing is that if you take care of people, your metrics will get where they need to be, but because that's not your singular focus, they trust you. When you talk to them, they listen and they know that you care. And so you're creating an ecosystem where you're going to get the KPIs to look the way that you want to, but because that's not your underlying motivation, they're going to trust you and they're going to want to do business with you. And that comes that giving and taking. It's that scaling of relationships long term, and it's about listening. Instead of listening just enough so you know how to interject and what to respond with, you're genuinely listening to people. And at the end of the day, social media exists because we all have this human intrinsic need to be seen and heard. If we did not have that need, social would not be necessary. I'm going to say that again. Social would not exist if we did not have the need to be seen and heard. So when in doubt, if you leave with nothing else from this presentation other than watch Wall-E, are you making people feel seen and heard? Because if you are not, that is the base level. That's the bar. You got to at least do the bar. And then we can talk about building and structuring and growing.
Yeah, I think, Christina, for us, I think the mindset change came when we realized that community is not initiative. Like I'll be talking to my board members.
Yeah.
And they'll say, okay, what's this community initiative that we're doing? It's like, yes, it is. There are initiatives that build community. So much more. But once we actually understand the community is the outcome of the initiatives that we're trying to do, it marks the spirit, it marks sort of the patience that we have, it marks sort of how we show up for our community. It just changes how you actually approach those conversations, those initiatives. And you're not saying like, let's let's launch a community. That's why I think a lot of community initiatives fail.
Yeah.
Or initiatives that built community fail because we're seeing it as sort of 1 + 1 = 2, but when actually community is actually the 2, the outcome of it.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. No, I think that's a really great point. So tactically, what is this going to look like? And I think there's a really great way to think about this. So if you are on this call, you may have heard of the Community Canvas or Steve Blank's business model canvas. And so originally, Steve Blank's made a business model canvas, which is basically a one-sheet grid that breaks down the key questions that you need to ask yourself when you are creating a business plan. And what it does is it singularly gets you to the heart of what you are building. And so it's a fantastic tool or framework when you're thinking about getting to this really deep, granular, foundational level. There's a community canvas that was created. You can go to community-canvas.com, and it's specifically for community, not just for social media, but for community as a whole. It has more spaces than this, but it's generally for community and things like that. And so what it comes down to is same, like really core questions. So what we did for HeyOrca was we took the community canvas and we essentially targeted it for, but what does this look like from a social media manager's lens? What are the things that are different for them versus maybe creating a closed community? And so what we wanted to do was really kind of identify the core pillars of what you need so that you can start building this. And so we do have a link to it in the chat, so you can go ahead and create your own copy to really kind of crystallize your thoughts on all of this. And so Maria has a question. It's hard for us as an agency to prove the value of community and trust the clients. How can we explain this to them when they are hyper-focused on getting short-term leads and conversions? That's a really great question. The thing is that community is long-term. So it's not going to look bright, shiny, and physically like successful longer term. However, that doesn't mean that you can't create community milestones so that you can let them see what those early wins could be. So maybe those early wins are someone mentioning it, or someone joining it, or someone wanting to be a leader in it or a moderator. It could be those vanity metrics that are not really vanity metrics in the very beginning, but they become that as it gets older. So maybe it's the first 100 members of a community. But you need to, depending on what the KPIs that client is looking for, figure out if we're going to build a community, how can you set it up so, like, I know you want early wins, and this is, as a project or as an outcome, is not going to be an early win. However, here are some early milestones that we can keep an eye on that's going to showcase that we're building this over time and we're on the right trajectory. I hope that helps.
Yeah, if we can share our story. So so people think that community is sort of this fluffy thing, it's about a feeling and emotion. Yes, it is, but it's also quantifiable. So just building on your point, Christina, there are two kinds of metrics that you can think about: leading metrics and lagging metrics. So a lot of times when you talk about to executives or you talk to clients, we're talking about like lagging metrics, which is sales, signups and so forth. But there are leading metrics that tells you you're heading in the right direction. So in HeyOrca, our initiatives are webinars, our newsletters, social media, on LinkedIn. Our leading metrics would be searches of HeyOrca. Basically, if people are seeing a sense of belonging, you guys are coming to a webinar. So right now there's like 80 of us here. That's a leading metric, like this thing's working. So when we first started, it was like 20 people. And shout out to the OG 20 people that showed up week after week as well. But 80 people, so that's a leading indicator. And then the middle indicator is people searching for us. And then that should translate over to basically increase sales because of all the things that we're doing. So you then pace your expectation of when you're going to hit the milestones based on whether it's a leading indicator, it's a middle indicator, or it's the lagging indicator. So when we try to say that leading indicator timeline, like you're going to reach a lagging indicator in a leading indicator timeline, then we're basically misplacing sort of the metric and the timeline. So you want to be very clear in terms of like, these things are we doing, and these are the leading indicators for us. It will be Google searches, mentions, right? And then the content that we create will be measured by saves and engagement. And then we go on Google, we look at sort of searches. And then at the bottom line, we look at sales, and then we basically divide that by cohort. So what I'm trying to say here is that totally, very, very important question. But if we take a structured approach, you're able to then slice and make sure that we're actually measuring at the right time and setting the right expectations for stakeholders.
And in the section 4 of the canvas, you'll see that it says success. What I would do is, instead of saying like, hey, we want this number of many whatever, what I would do is I would create goals, SMART goals. What are we expecting in the first month? What are we expecting in the first quarter? What are we expecting in the first 6? And that way you kind of get to let them know and guide them on what are the KPIs that are physically possible. So if their whole thing is, I want to increase our sentiment by like 300%, and I want to like double our quota, fine, not something you're going to be able to do in the first month. So you need to handhold them and let them know, okay, but what is physically possible? And what can we technically strive for without setting ourselves up for failure? So you need to be incredibly transparent in that success block and really kind of showcase them what can we immediately be able to look for in the first 1, 2, 3 months. But then also, as we mature the community and we're able to do more and more with it, what are the new KPIs that we could theoretically look at as we're growing? Because, and I think anyone here can say this, like, growing your community is huge. But at some point, that no longer is the story. It's more about engagement. It's more about what's happening within the community. What kind of conversations are happening? Are you seeing referrals? Are you seeing positive lift? Are you seeing people help each other? Are you seeing people share resources or come to events? It really becomes more of this really human soup of what's actually going on in the community itself. And so we'll talk about these individually, but I think it's a really great way for you, an opportunity for you to go in and say, here's what is actually possible in the short term. Here's what's possible a little bit after that. And then here's what we're going to be looking at long term, but really kind of create that plan for them so that they have a sense of clarity. Because if you don't let them know what's possible, they are going to dictate the KPIs, and it's not going to be what you need them to be. It's going to be like, well, the community's been live for a month. Like, why didn't our sales numbers like spike? And it's not, the math isn't mathing. And so you need to be that person that stands up to them to say, here's what's feasible, here's what's possible. And as we mature with the work, this is what we're going to be going towards. So it comes down to that purpose. So the number one thing, we're looking at the purpose of this. Why are we doing this? Like, why do you actually want to build community? Is it revenue? Is it connection? Is it retention? What does that look like? And a really great way to kind of frame this is to look through the SPACES model that was through CMX and David Spinks. And he's talking about the overall reason of what this is going to help with. And so when it comes down to it, we're looking at, is it for support? Is it to help you with the product? Are we looking at acquisition? We want to get more customers. Do we want our customers to contribute, maybe create UGC or create something else? Do we want them to engage with each other? Do we want success? And theoretically, a community could offer all of this. Please do not pick all of them. Please pick a primary and maybe a secondary. And as you start to do that, if you want to continue to grow and build out other pillars for your community so that it can offer other things, amazing. But you really need to start with a very core focus, because that's going to give you what you need in order to really push forward. Then shared identity. You're in this room, or you want to be in this room because you share something in common with this brand. Maybe you're a customer and we're talking about a customer community. Maybe it's because you're a social media manager. So now we're talking not about a community of product, but we're talking about a community of practice. This is a community specifically because of the practice of the person who is involved, who's a part of it. And so maybe it's for social media managers, maybe it's for digital marketers, whatever that looks like. But having a core reason of why you all collectively want to be in the room gives an immediate sense of belonging. I'm a social media manager. I'm in a room filled with social media managers. I instinctively, immediately belong. So that's a huge frictionless point for me, so that I know I can immediately have something in common with these people. We have common problems. We have common friction. We have common goals. I can immediately start engaging. 3, value. What is in it for them? Why would they even want to be in there in the first place? And be prepared, because a lot of people will create a free community and be like, why don't they want to be in here? Because it isn't build it and they will come. You need to give them a reason why they should even be in the room, why they would want to be in the room. What is that helpful for them? So if it's education, if it's entertainment, if it's inspiration, advocacy, promotion, but whatever it is, it needs to align with what motivates them. it needs to make sure that it's something that actually is valuable to them, because if you pick something that is not a carrot for them, they have they don't care at all, then you're going to feel like you're giving the world to them and they could not care less. So it not only needs to be impactful, it needs to have an understood value, but it also has to align with what they consider value, what they consider something they need. That's going to be huge in creating that connection, because by knowing what motivates them and making sure the value is tied to that, that's another cue that you understand them. If you keep pitching me to be a part of something that I don't know why I should go, and then you're pitching me something that you think is valuable that I don't think is valuable, not only do I not want to join because it doesn't match me, but I now no longer trust that you understand my needs. So you actually wanted to connect with me, and instead you created the opposite impression. You have to make sure that the value is aligned. 4, success. Knowing what those KPIs are, like what we talked about, and starting from like early days all the way up to when it matures. And what are the KPIs that you know you can count, that you know you can be a part of, that you know that you can specifically measure, and that you can really kind of focus on as you're building and as you're maturing and really kind of crystallizing this movement. You need to make sure that you're that guiding hand of what does success look like, because I'm going to tell you, if you do not tell them, they're going to say, we need this number of many referrals, we need this many conversions. They are going to dictate what it is, and it's all going to be tied to revenue. And I'm not saying you can't do that, but doing that in a very short period of time with just community, you are setting yourselves up for failure. Be the expert in the room that details what KPIs they need to be looking for. 5, what is it actually like when they get in there? What does the experience really look like? A lot of people will just open up a Slack channel and they let people flood in, but they don't think about the onboarding experience. Think about going to a concert or a sporting event. You think about the entire thing. Okay, I have my ticket. I need to get here a certain time. Where do I park? Cool. How do I get in? How long is it going to take me to get my ticket scanned so I can get in? Okay, cool. Now I'm in. Great. I need to find my seat. Okay, great. Now that I found my seat, now I need to go get some food and I want to go to the bathroom. All right, cool. Where's the concession stand? Where's the bathroom? Are there signs marked so I can find my way? Okay, great. Now I get back to my seat. Everything's good. But now there's a crazy drunk person in my section, and I'm not going to be able to enjoy this at all. Are there any guidelines as to behavior here? Is there anything that's going to help people understand that this is not appropriate? Okay, security's coming to talk to them. Okay, hopefully that helps and they will behave and I can enjoy the rest of my time here. Nope, drunk person's crazy again, doing their thing. This time security is going to remove them. Everyone claps, everyone's excited. We get to watch the game or the concert. Cool, amazing, great. Now we've finished the concert or the game, everything's great, and now I got to get home. So now I got to figure out how I'm going to get my way out. And all of these people are trying to leave the stadium at the exact same time. Nope, they have very clear guidelines as to how I can get out and how I can get exactly to where I need to go to my parking. Amazing, that's great. Oh, there's cop cars here, so they're going to make sure that everyone's good. Amazing. But you see how we walk through that whole process? You need to be thinking about that entire process for your community. How do they get in? What does it look like? How are they greeted? Are they greeted? How do they introduce themselves? How do they connect with others? What are the guidelines? How should they behave, not behave? What is inappropriate? After that, what happens afterwards? But really making sure that you're thoughtfully empathizing with them on this journey and making sure that you've really kind of responded to everything. And when in doubt, you have feedback opportunities. So if there is anything that you've missed, they have a very quick CTA to be able to get that process fixed for them. 6, how do you take care of people differently? I am a massive fan of positive reinforcement. I think that positive reinforcement is one of the most amazing things. However, it has to be valuable to the person who's doing it and giving it. And so think about it this way. If I write a blog for you, let's say I write a blog for HeyOrca, and I'm also like talking about how much I love them all over the place on social. And then they treat someone who doesn't do even half of that the way that they treat me. How does that make that other person feel? Amazing, right? Like, yay, they love me. But how does it make me feel when I know that I'm doing more than that other person? Now I don't want to do as much. Now I want to do less. I don't feel as valued. I feel kind of taken for granted now. And so the thing is that human psychology is so deeply ingrained in marketing, in comms, in community. It takes a really empathetic perspective to be able to go in and day out and understand that they're going to have to talk to all of these humans, be prepared for thousands of different emotions, and they have to provide a good experience for them. That's across social, that's across closed communities, open communities, but you have to be able to really think about how are we separating the experience and taking care of people based on how they're connected to us, and how can we make them all feel special even if we are segmenting. And engagement, what does that even look like? What is talking to you, what is engaging with you look like? How is that a part of it? And what behaviors do we want our fans, our audience, our community to actually do for us? What does that look like? I love the idea of letting people choose their own adventure. I find that that's a really core way for people to be more open to doing more work with you as a brand, because they're going to pick the things they love. If someone doesn't like being on camera and your ask is, hey, can you make TikToks for us? They're never going to give you what you want because they're not comfortable doing it, because that's not who they are. That same person could write War and Peace for you, though. They'd write the longest, most beautiful prose in a blog you've ever seen, but you didn't give them the option. So thinking about how you want them to be a part of it, really think about what kind of behaviors you want to encourage, what behaviors you want to discourage, and what are the ramifications if they were to do something. Like, how would you handle trolls? Would you mute them? Would you block them? What would you do? But having that structure in place before those conversations happen is going to just make your job as a social media manager and as a brand a lot easier. And then spaces. You want to hang out literally where your people hang out. So on social, we talk all the time. You want to go where your people are. Same thing. With community, you want to create an ecosystem. You are creating a fostering ecosystem of connection amongst your audience and community everywhere that they are, whether it's in a Slack channel, a Facebook group, on social, in a webinar, in a newsletter. But the main thing that you want to create is a sense of continuity and identity. There's nothing worse than having a really fun conversation on social, but then their emails are boring, or they completely ignore you when you try to talk to support. No matter how they found you, no matter how they touch you, it needs to feel like it's the exact same thing. It needs to really be focused so that they're able to really kind of capture that sense of belonging, no matter how they were able to connect with you. And so that process looks like this. And I love this framework, but it's never ending. And so what you really need to be thinking about is we're listening. Social listening is a huge love of my life. I'm just naturally a nosy/curious person. So I love listening in on the conversations and seeing what's happening and how people are reacting to certain things. And then creating based off of that, how are we able to really kind of tap into what's happening with social media managers or a specific other group? And then how are we distributing that? How are we engaging? And how are we really creating this flywheel of connection? And so here's another thing, another look at the social media model, the social media manager canvas. So you can go ahead and take a thing at you want. Jennifer, you're not being a bummer at all. You're not being a bummer at all. We'd love to work with you and see if we can get some engagement for you and see kind of like what's going on with the content that you're creating and the conversations that you're having. And with that, I will send it over to Joe, but we'd love to save time at the very end to talk over questions about engagement.
I think what's really important as well is like social don't exist in silos. So when we think about social in HeyOrca, we're thinking about how does all the marketing programs work together to support each other. So our newsletter, for example, supports our social supports our newsletter supports our webinar. So I think it's really important as well. But Jennifer, you're not alone. I think there's a lot to be unpacked and there's like nuances with different brands, but we can definitely get into it. But I just want to share what does community look like for HeyOrca? So mindset change. One of the things that we changed was we're not the main character. So when we started posting about HeyOrca is this, HeyOrca is that, we just are not getting the traction that we want. I think the only person that maybe liked our post was my mom. And then we changed our mindset. Hey, the main character is our community. So we start reposting, replatforming people that we really respect, we want to support, voices that we feel should have that platform. We started shifting our narrative from HeyOrca being the main character to our community being the main character. That also means helping our employees build their personal brands. So if there are managers out there, helping your employees build personal brand is good for your brand. And they talk more about you, they talk about your life there. And even if they don't explicitly mention HeyOrca, for example, people would check out your profile, see where they work, see that they love where they're working, they look like, you know, happy people and so forth. But that also means looking at your employee as a community, your employee base as a community. The other thing that we did was not only create content ourselves, but also co-create with creators. So we look at creators that we really respect, we want to bet on. And Emma and Anna, those are the two creators that we really like working with. I think Emma is in the webinar as well. And we sort of work with them to create content. And then the other thing is when you show up for your community, they will show up for you because we have receipts. That's Cooper right there. He posted about our webinar. That's Robin posting about that as well, or Madeline. And then someone actually did a sketch around a webinar as well, which is really, really cool. So anyways, these are some of the receipts that we have. We have like way more, but they start showing up and people start talking about it because you're providing it value. And I think what's really important is that we understand that the purpose of creating this community is having a sense of belonging for us. That's really important. So I just want to encourage you to think about your role as a social media manager, that you're not just about building brand awareness, you're in the business of building communities. And by the way, community is the one thing your competitors can't copy. All right, I'll pass it back to Alyssa.
Thank you so much. I feel like I just like sat there like in awe, like listening to everything and taking it all in. There was so much great information there. I think we got to answer most questions, but one I've seen is, will this presentation be available to us after? A recording of this will be going out usually tomorrow morning when it's done processing. I can definitely look at seeing if we can put the slides somewhere, but we do have our blog post that has a lot of this information in it and the framework as well. So I can put that in the chat again so that everyone can have access to it. Just making sure I didn't miss anything.
I think one thing that's really interesting, Christina, we're down to another one, is like people want a little bit more tactical, which we can definitely get into.
Yeah.
In terms of like, you know, what does that look like? And I think like what's hard as well, guys, is that it's so different from brand to brand, community to community. So, but I think like we can start from a starting point to get your wheels turning. And Danny as well, he brought up a really good point, which is what does community look like at different maturity stages, which is a really excellent point, because the way you build community when you have 0 to 100 is very different from like if you have 10K plus community.
Yes.
So I think that's a really good point.
Okay. Yep, we can add that.
Awesome. And I know we have a few minutes left. So I do want to mention that, of course, we have another webinar next week. So we're going to be talking all about the biggest headlines in social from May. There's actually a few pretty good social media updates in May. So we're going to be going over those together so that you don't have to go all over the internet and try to find out what has been happening. We will do that for you, so don't worry. So come hang out with us next week. And then I do want to announce our 2 giveaway winners. I have them here. Let me grab it here. So our Instagram winner is Sienna Dawn. So congratulations, Sienna. Thank you for voting on our poll. I will be contacting you after this. And our customer winner is Juliana Chang. So I'll be contacting both of you after this to get you your merch points. And congratulations.
A slight request here, Ketsia. I think like what would be cool, Ketsia, if we can do a sticker story around like questions you have about a webinar. Perhaps we can collect some questions. That could inspire our next webinar or next content, and maybe we can answer that as well. So if that's okay, Ketsia, like check out our Instagram stories. We can have a story sticker, so you can submit your questions, and then we'll try our best to get back to you guys.
And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn too if there's anything that's like deeply nuanced. Like I'm happy to help and answer any questions I can.
Awesome. And I will mention a survey will go out after this webinar in about 10 minutes. And there's a little section at the bottom that you can leave any comments as well. So if you want to leave any feedback or suggestions for the next time, you can definitely leave them there as well. Awesome. Well, that is everything. Thank you so much, Joe and Christina, for joining us. That was incredible. And I can just feel that we're going to be doing a part 2 sometime soon. So this is great. And thank you, everyone, for joining us and all of your awesome questions. And thank you, everyone, for helping each other in the chat. I was kind of seeing everyone giving advice and all of that, and I love to see that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks, Alyssa. And Christina, I'll see you in real life next week.
Sounds good.
Bye, everyone.
All right. See you guys.